Our particular birthright was that when God spoke to us to start this place, this is not a church that we thought of. There's a God's dream. They communicated it to us, and now it's communicated to many. It's God's dream. I believe implicitly what Brother Phil said this morning. Thousands will come. And what Jan said, thousands will come. That's the promise of God to us. That's our birthright. God will let us have the privilege of helping thousands of people find their way. That is a great privilege and a great honor. So we're going to build a new building to hold at least some of them. He also said to me, you'll never build a building big enough. But that doesn't mean you build nothing. Because you've got to at least be able to train your leadership. At least be able to have a midweek meeting. You've got to be able to have something. We have to have a building. It rains sometimes. It gets very hot in the summer. It's extremely cold in the winter. You need a building, but it will not be just a building. It will be inhabited by the Spirit of God and filled with people finding their way to God, finding wholeness in their lives. So on Monday night last, we had a meeting. The whole group of us came together to discuss the new building. And I showed these slides. And for us, it'll be the house of God. Jacob had a stone, a rock, but he'd get wet if it rained. Very cold at night and very hot in the summer. But in his day, that was the house of God. Then they moved to a tent. But then they moved to Solomon's temple. And when it was complete, the Shekinah glory of God came into that Solomon's temple. It was a magnificent building. People gave their very best to build the house of God. They said, God is worth my best. And they gave their best. And it was a magnificent structure. Well, ours won't be as magnificent as that. But it will be very precious. I'd like to show the DVD of our new church building so that you could see it. Please turn off these lights as well. Can you turn off the front of house lights, wherever they might be? Oh, thank you. Anyhow, and let it roll, please. This is going to be our new building. That's a view without the roof of the new building. That'll be the new building when it's ultimately complete. We'll seat 3,500 people on its completion. That front covered veranda part is about 8-9 meters up off the ground, and it's a veranda. It'll be 1,200 square meters, I think, when it's finished, or something. Yeah, 1,200 square meters. That'll be our dining facility. That's it there. And it'll be our property, and that's the property. And that's another view of the property. That will be it there. The veranda is facing Manipi Parklands. And so the back part of it's facing Kate Street. That's on our property. And it's going to hold a lot of people. It'll be made of tilt slab construction, which is perhaps the most economical way to build a building. It will look beautiful, but it won't be hugely expensive. That's an inside view of the church. Another inside view. Come on, let's give Jesus a clap. That's a sound desk for Lavinia. want to appreciate so much Eric. Eric's a student architect, and he put this together. We want to thank Jessica, who put it all onto DVD for this presentation. It will be just a glorious... We're going to build this building in 2 stages. The first stage will be built outside behind that wall there and go down nearly to the MPF building. And then we'll all move into there while we build the second stage, which will go right over the top of this building, and it'll all be joined together. Well, praise God. When we started this church, it was a miracle. We started with no money, but here we are. And now we've still got no money. We've just got this. But we're going to build that. When we finish that, we'll most likely have no money, but we'll own it. And then we'll build the second stage, and we'll have no money when we start it, most likely. And when we've finished it, we'll most likely still have no money, but we'll have it, and we'll be doing whatever. I've been like that for about 40 years. But God will watch over us. You remember that the church of the Old Testament was the result of miracles. You look how they came out of Egypt. They had to go through the Red Sea. There actually was a way they could have gone to Israel without hitting the Red Sea. But the cloud of God led them to an impossibility. And they had to cross the Red Sea because the Egyptian army was behind them. So they couldn't go back to their mental head and say it's impossible to get over here. This cloud, I don't know what it is, but it can't be God. The Egyptian army was right up behind them. They were going to kill them, take them back captive. So there was only one way. They decided they'd kill Moses and surrender. That's what they thought. But Moses looked to God. And God said to him, "Why do you look to me? I've given you a rod that's anointed, lift it up." And he lifted up the rod, and the mighty power of God parted that sea. But it was a miracle for them to get out of Egypt and go to the promised land. I noticed this, that when they came to go into the promised land, the River Jordan was in flood. Just the worst time to have to cross that thing with 3.5 million people. Grandmas, granddads, babies, all the stuff they had with them, the sheep, the cattle, the horses, everything. Why didn't God pick the dry season, for heaven's sake? He seems to delight in impossibilities. They don't worry him. They only seem to worry the human mind. The human mind bombs out and says, impossible. That's what they said at Kadesh Barnea. It's impossible. So they wandered around for years. Then they came up to the flooded River Jordan, and Joshua, who'd replaced Moses, but he'd learnt from Moses, and he said, "God, what will we do?" And God said, "Tell the priests who carry the ark to put their foot in the water." And as they took a step into that water, the mighty waters of the flooded river parted, and they went right back to the city called Adam, which is 20 miles. Not a bad sort of a move of water going backwards, and the flood's still coming down. And the waters went back. I'll guarantee the people of Jericho didn't sleep good that night. And I'll guarantee Satan didn't sleep good that night either. So they went across, and then Joshua said to them, "Now go back and pick out 12 stones out of the middle of the river." It'd have to be faith, people, to go back in there. Like we made it through. For those waters might come down a rush, and I'd be 40 feet under. They got 12 stones and set them up as a memorial. It's always been a miracle. That's what I'm wanting to say. God has always demanded impossibilities and then given a miracle. So if you're in a place where you need a miracle, God is the right person to know. He's the right one to know. It's always been a miracle. From cover to cover of that Bible, it's a miracle. He started off with chaos, and out of it he created the world we lived in. That's a miracle. Genesis chapter 1, page 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Big miracle. First verse. At the end of the book, he creates a new heavens and a new earth